Hello, and welcome to AFSPA Live, our monthly digital broadcast designed to give AFSPA members and eligible federal employees a place to ask questions and get answers about past AFSPA Talks topics, their benefits, and wellness needs. There are 3 primary ways you can join our broadcast. Join us live by clicking the link in this video description and following the instructions to allow access to your camera and microphone. Then, a show moderator will be available to assist you further. You can ask your question through the chat box on whichever social media platform you're streaming AFSPA Live, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. If you're not able to join us live, call our toll-free line prior to the broadcast at 888-435-0757 and leave our team a voice message that we may play back and answer live on air. Just tell us who you are and the question you'd like us to answer. I'll see you at the next AFSPA Live.
Hi everyone, welcome to AFSPA Live, a live video broadcast Q&A session that we stream the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Maddie Norton. I'm a Junior Communication Coordinator at AFSPA, and I'll be moderating the show today. Today we have a special 1-hour episode all about open season, and we are here with our host, AFSPA COO, Kyle Longton. And Kyle, if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started into this discussion.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for joining us a little bit early this month so we can get the information out there about open season while people have time and so that we can enjoy Thanksgiving with our families. Not that we don't enjoy spending time with our members, especially when we've had so much interest. But Maddie, I am here. It's in your hands. And folks tuning in, let's try to stump us. Too hard.
We already have so many questions from a lot of our members. We'll start off with one from Erica, and she has asked, do you need to meet a separate deductible for primary care / labs, x-rays, or is the overall $600 deductible okay, or do you need to have additional deductibles to cover it?
Sure. Yeah. And this question's come up in a couple of our webinars. So I appreciate Erica bringing this to us during this session. So there is a calendar year deductible for the foreign service benefit plan. And in network, for self only, it's $300. For the family or self plus one, it's $600. Out of network, you can go out of network. The deductible is $400. Or $800 for the family, and that's a cumulative deductible. So you're never going to pay more than $400, even for in-network and out-of-network combined. But essentially, for services that are subject to the calendar year deductible, and Erica's identified some of them here: labs, X-rays, primary care for treatment. Those are subject to the calendar year deductible. You meet the deductible, and then the plan starts paying benefits. There is not a separate deductible. There's not one for primary care, and then a separate deductible for labs and a separate deductible for x-rays. It's not how it works. It's one cumulative deductible. You meet that, we start paying benefits. But there are certain services that are not subject to the calendar year deductible, including your preventive care, your annual checkup, your immunizations that you might need, and a number of our popular services like the alternative treatments, massage, the acupuncture, chiropractic. Those are not subject to the calendar year deductible, nor are your prescription copays. So we those are as stated in the brochure, and it's very clear in the brochure. It says subject to the calendar year deductible or not subject to the calendar year deductible. So I encourage you to look at that. But this is a great question, and it's a little different from some of the other plans out there that may have separate deductibles or may not have a deductible at all. And I should mention, because this has come up, there is cost sharing even after you've met the deductible. So you meet the deductible, let's say, and you go into the doctor for a sore throat, something like that, then you're going to be responsible for 10% of the cost. If you're going to an in-network provider, we'll pick up 90% once that calendar year deductible is met.
Perfect. Deductibles are hard to understand as someone who's learning to understand them. So good question. We're already getting some questions from our YouTube, it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and show one from their screen name is I Want My Privacy. Love the screen name. Any changes to breastfeeding coverage?
Love the desire for privacy, and no, the and I, if you have a more specific question, I just want to say no, there are not changes. We still cover the cost of breast pumps when purchased from through a network pharmacy or a network DME provider. We still provide coverage for lactation support. So if you have more specific questions, please submit those. But we have not made changes there. I will say that we have enhanced the maternity, the healthy pregnancy program. So there's now more opportunities to engage with the nurse care manager, earn incentives for that. And we also do have coverage now for doula services. This is maybe a little before the breastfeeding comes, or right at the beginning, sort of getting used to that before maybe a lactation counselor comes in. We are covering up to $1,200 per year for doula services. And we're glad to be offering that along with the enhanced healthy pregnancy program. So great question.
We have another question from John, and he has asked, how can I find a list of preferred pharmacies for the new FSBP Aetna Medicare Advantage plan and a list of preferred generic and generic medication?
That is a great question. And so, John, I would tell you to go to fsbphealth.com/retiree. And that's like FSBP, like Foreign Service Benefit Plan, fsbphealth.com/retiree. If you scroll down on that page a little bit, there's a link to view plan details. And that comes up in the one of the very first sections you'll see is about the prescription drugs. There's an option there for find a pharmacy. There's a list of preferred drug. There's the preferred drug list, which is the formulary. There's information on prior authorization as well as step therapy under that plan. So that's the best place I can tell you to go. And then there's also a phone number on that page if you have a question, a more specific question. There's a phone number there where you can contact the customer service line for that plan.
Good to know. And looks like we have a question. Sorry, we're just getting so many questions. From Linza, I believe. And she's asking if there's something going on with the AFSPA My Portal. She's getting an error message, and the error message says, forbidden, you don't have permission to access this resource.
No, I don't. I am not aware of an issue, but I'll tell you, you can send an email to us, and I'll ask one of my colleagues who's sort of moderating that to provide an email to our IT support team, and they can work with you to make sure you've got to resolve whatever the error is and make sure you've got access. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We have a question from Ron, and he has asked, will there be any coverage for prolotherapy?
And Ron, that's a great question, and I am here to tell you that I just searched for what prolotherapy was to identify myself. I actually need to look into this and find out there. I want to give you the right answer, and I don't have the right answer in front of me. So again, I'll ask one of my colleagues to provide you with contact information to reach out to me, and I will get you an answer on that because I want to make sure I get you the right answer. And sometimes it may be something that's subject to pre-certification or medical necessity review. And it may also be something that is not covered. So please go ahead and contact me directly, and I'll be happy to get you an answer.
We have another question from Shasta and James, it seems, and they have asked, I need to add my stepchildren to my insurance during open season. I already have my husband, my 2 children on my insurance, but do I need to submit a 2809 that includes all 7 of us?
It sounds like that you all already have a family plan, the 402 plan, and there will be some documentation needed to show to be able to add them because unless this is a result of the marriage and you're adding your husband and the stepchildren at the same time, or if there's other mitigating circumstances, but we may require some documentation. So our member services, member quality services team, that we have a secure form to contact them. They can give you the best information. I don't know that a 2809 would be required since you already have family. The 2809 is really more if you're changing plans or changing from, for instance, self-only to self and family. Because you've already got the family, we will need some sort of documentation to just to add them, and it may be a birth certificate, it may be something else, but we'll get you a link to the member quality services, the enrollment and eligibility secure form, and one of our colleagues can get you a response to exactly what we need to add them, and can confirm what the effective date for their coverage would be.
Kind of segueing into one of the big things that has been added to the Foreign Service Benefit Plan this year was the Medicare Advantage part, and we have lots of questions about that. And so Robert has asked to please explain the FSBP Aetna Medicare plan and what is the cost benefit analysis there?
I'm glad we've got an hour-long episode. We've had a we've had a lot of questions on this during the webinars. I've had some emails about this and so forth. And this is a really good question. So the FSBP Aetna Medicare Advantage plan. This we watch some of our colleague plans, I'll say, in the FEHB program offer these plans over the last 2 years. I think the very first was APWU offered a Medicare Advantage plan starting in 2021, and a number of other plans offered this, and it is an option within the for us for the Foreign Service Benefit Plan. So you don't change your enrollment, you just give us a call. There's a specific number to call to opt into the Medicare Advantage plan. So it is intended to meet some of the requests that we have received from members through the years. And it is different from the commercial Medicare Advantage plans that you may see advertised on TV or get flyers about every day and postcards and things like that from various carriers. This plan, these plans, and ours in particular, has been reviewed by the Office of Personnel Management. And one of the requirements that they have is that the Medicare Advantage plan must be equal to or greater than the benefits offered in the plan that it's paired with. So in this case, the Foreign Service Benefit Plan. So it's intended to sort of provide some wraparound coverage. It requires that you be enrolled in Foreign Service Benefit Plan as well as Medicare Part A and Part B. You'll get a separate card for the Medicare Advantage plan. And this also includes separate prescription coverage from the Foreign Service Benefit Plan. So it includes a Part D plan, the prescription coverage under Medicare. And it includes comprehensive coverage. It includes coverage for primary care, for specialists, hospital care, etc. It does require that you still pay your Part B premiums. And it also includes some new options, things like vision coverage. So your Foreign Service Benefit Plan doesn't include routine vision coverage. This does. It includes an eye exam each year. It also continues to include access to telehealth through Teledoc. It includes access to silver sneakers. And I have received more requests for silver sneakers through the years than I can remember. Back to my very first days working at AFSPA and through recent months. So silver sneakers is not something we can offer under the Foreign Service Benefit Plan because it's not something we could offer to everybody. You have to be age 65 or older to access it, but we can offer it through the Medicare Advantage Plan. So it does offer access to that. One of the big features that I think people will like about the Medicare Advantage Plan is that it does offer up to $900 in Medicare Part B premium adjustments, reductions, I should say, each year. So it's $75 per month per person who opts into the Medicare Advantage plan. That helps reduce that cost of Medicare Part B, even as that cost is going down next year. But that's we're hoping that we'll encourage people to enroll in Part B and to look at this plan. It also, one thing I want to mention, we have under Foreign Service Benefit Plan some fantastic care management programs to help people when they're facing surgery or major diagnoses and treatments and things like that. And those programs are available to people who are enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part B, but it's harder for us to get to those members because we don't have the pre-certification when somebody has Medicare as their primary payer. And so this plan would provide that comprehensive care management with its own dedicated clinical team and provide support to you when you're facing and proactive outreach, because they're going to know the Medicare Advantage plan is the sole payer when you have hospitalization, when you have major diagnoses, when you're facing surgery, anything like that. And their clinical team can reach out and provide support proactively or right in the moment when you might need it most. And I think that's one of the great features that this plan also offers access to some programs like meal delivery following hospital discharge from the hospital, non-emergency transportation to doctor visits and hospital visits. So there's 24 of those available per year, one way trips up to 60 miles. And it also offers some things like a program called Resources for Living, which is sort of a helpline if you're looking for a contractor in the area, or resources for senior living support. Now, the cost benefit analysis. So that's what you gain if you opt into this program. And I should mention, completely voluntary. And if it turns out you don't like it, you can return to the foreign service benefit plan at any time outside of open season or a qualifying life event. You just provide in writing that you want to make that change. What are you losing? I guess is maybe the question, or what might be the drawback to opting to this program? Well, you lose us. We're not providing. AFSPA would not be providing the customer service anymore. It actually goes through a Aetna call center, and it's a great call center. They're specially trained in this program and everything else, but it is that because this is a CMS approved plan, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. There's limitations to how we can intervene in claims, questions, and disputes. The benefits and the decisions are what they are to a greater extent than they are with the Foreign Service Benefit Plan. There's a different pharmacy benefit manager. So we go from Express Scripts to CVS Caremark. CVS will be managing the pharmacy in this plan. And I'm watching the questions that are coming in, Maddie, as well. And I saw that we had one question about alternative coverage. I can tell you that the Medicare Advantage plan does cover chiropractic, and there's no limit on the number of visits, but massage therapy is very different. And the massage therapy, it requires establishing medical necessity. So there is a third-party group that reviews that medical necessity, and it does. The coverage will not be just for comfort or relaxation purposes. So it does sort of have to be a medical review and so forth, and so may not be as accessible to as many people anymore. So I share that. And then we've had some questions, and this may come up in the voicemails, about overseas coverage. FSBP works wherever you are in the world. The benefits are pretty much the same. The Medicare Advantage plan does offer coverage outside the United States for urgent and emergent care. It's intended if you are traveling overseas and have a medical emergency or an accidental injury. It's not intended for somebody who's spending significant time and receiving significant medical services outside the United States. You do have to be a resident of the United States, and it really is intended for someone who's receiving most of their care within the United States. I see the question about acupuncture as well, and that came up, and we flashed it on the screen, and I didn't answer it. Let me double check that. And I will come back to that in just a moment. And I will also encourage folks, if you have more questions about specifically the Medicare Advantage program, you can go to FSBP, like Foreign Service Benefit Plan, fsbphealth.com/retiree. That's where you'll find the information on the plan. And there are also specific webinars being offered by Aetna about this program. And the next one's on November 30th. And you can find that and register for it at fsbphealth.com/webinars, an S on webinar, webinars. And you can register there for that November 30th or future webinars to find out about more specific details about that program.
All right. Before we head to a voicemail, we have a couple of those. I wanted to get one question answered before we move on. This is from Douglas. And he has asked, is it possible to have one claim processed by itself instead of getting an EOB that has 5 or 10 claims on one?
It's a good question. And I know that the 5 or 10 may come through because of the way that they're submitted, or the time in which they arrive. So good question. I know we do that for efficiency. It sounds like there may be a specific reason, Doug, why you want that information. Please send an email, and I see we're trying to direct people to outreach@afspa.org. Send an email there, and if there's a specific claim you need isolated for any reason, let us know. But we do try to provide that efficiency, so we're not inundating you with email after email or mailing after mailing. And again, that it does come through as the questions that come through.
And just
I
to
should have
remind
said, I'm sorry,
everyone,
as the claims come through. Sorry, Maddie.
no, you're good. Just to remind everyone, we're doing a special 1 hour episode, so it's only 11:20, 40 more minutes to answer everyone's questions. We had questions come in through a form that we had asked, and we also have some voicemails. So if our team who's working on the background of this would push a voicemail, we'd love to hear it.
Yes, my name is Lloyd Moss, calling from Alexandria. I'm curious to know, under the Foreign Service Benefit Plan, once the deductible has been met, is there any preset limit to coverage for radiation therapy for cancer treatment? Thank you very much.
Okay, so good question there. So the deductibles met, and then you are looking at the terms of the brochure, and there is no maximum to the coverage. And in terms of individual treatments or specific treatments, those are subject to the review for medical necessity. But specific to this question, where we're talking about treatment for cancer, doctors are prescribing what they think is necessary. We're not going to say you get 5 treatments and that's it, or something like that. There is no limit to that. We do not have an annual or a lifetime maximum, as used to be the case years ago under certain health insurances and so forth. So no, there's not a limit. But again, we may request documentation for medical necessity and so forth. But typically, if you're under treatment for something like cancer, we're getting regular updates and regular claims and so forth. So we would have that, and we could be in touch with your provider to get that information if it were needed. It's a good question.
All right, we have another YouTube question. Margot has asked, if I have AFSPA and Medicare Part A, do I still need Medicare Part B?
That's an individual question. And that sort of, it gets into your willingness to pay the additional costs of Medicare Part B. I think that I'm rounding in my head here for 2023, the monthly premiums start at about $165 and some change. It's actually going down from 2022. But that's an individual premium, and that's payable every single month. So, some people that works, because if you have Part B and Foreign Service Benefit Plan, along with Part A, which is premium free to most people, you're essentially 100% covered for your medical and in hospital needs. You would still have some out-of-pocket costs when it comes to prescription drugs, because your Foreign Service Benefit Plan would be primary for that. But otherwise, you've got that 100% coverage. So you're paying a little bit there. Your calendar year deductible for both Foreign Service Benefit Plan and Medicare is waived. We're waiving the cost share. Foreign Service Benefit Plan will even typically, let me say that Medicare covers about 80%. When you go to a doctor or have outpatient services, Medicare is usually covering 80% of what they call their Medicare allowance. FSBP will cover the rest of that. There are some doctors who will charge up to 115% of that Medicare allowance. We will cover that cost difference as well. Be careful of opt-out physicians, and that's a whole other topic we can dive into some other time. But otherwise, we cover that cost difference. So you're looking at virtually no out-of-pocket costs except for your prescription drugs. You've got essentially 100% coverage. And so some people like that. It reduces their risk. Some people don't enroll in Part B because they feel like the coverage they have with Foreign Service Benefit Plan is adequate. They have catastrophic out-of-pocket protection on an annual basis. And some people, their income is high enough that they would be charged a higher rate for their Medicare Part B premium. It is based on your income from 2 years ago, and some people don't see the value in paying $200, $300, $400, and even $500 or more per month for Medicare Part B when they already have what we have.
All right.
That is a very brief answer to a very complicated and very personal question. And we're always happy to walk through individual circumstances with people and provide some guidance on what they should consider when making that decision.
We have another question, pretty simple, it looks like. We have one from Samuel. Is a prescription necessary for PT?
No, you can get what is required. We will need something to establish medical necessity. So, if you just walk into a physical therapist's office and ask and start receiving services, we're going to have some questions. We're going to need to see documentation and make sure that it is medically necessary for us to pay it. And that may be imaging that's provided, that may be notes from the physical therapist or so forth. But that is an accessible service. You have up to 125 combined PT, speech therapy, and occupational therapy visits each year. But again, that is subject to establishing medical necessity. A little bit different there from like the massage or acupuncture or chiropractor, where if you want it, you go get it. There's no need to establish medical necessity with the foreign service benefit plan.
Right. Back to Medicare Advantage. We have a question about prescriptions from Claudia. Would our prescriptions automatically be switched over to CVS if we make this change?
That's a really good question, and Claudia, we saw your questions that I think you submitted earlier today, and I did reach out to confirm things with our contact at Aetna on this plan, and so the prescriptions would not be automatically switched over. And I want to make sure that I get the specifics, since it will not happen automatically, but we do have a process set up with the Medicare Advantage that they will review members' accounts when they enroll in the Medicare Advantage plan to see the prescription history, and then they will reach out to members to talk about the need to get a new prescription, and can even provide assistance as needed to work with the provider who wrote the original prescription to get that and provide it to CVS Caremark. So that's if you're maybe doing home delivery, if you are maybe getting your prescriptions at a retail pharmacy that participates both in the Express Scripts network as well as the CVS network, then you may just need to present a new card the next time you have that prescription filled. So it would not be automatic, but we do have sort of a process to provide some assistance. And I did get confirmation. I didn't want to provide this without written conversation. Acupuncture is covered under the Medicare Advantage plan as well. So to that earlier question that we got, I do have confirmation that acupuncture is covered, chiropractic as well. The massage therapy is a bit different. As I said, there is a benefit for it, but it must be established to be medically necessary.
Claudia has a follow-up question. Why does Medicare offer a $900 premium reduction? Is this plan really better than what we have now?
Okay, that's a good question. So it's not Medicare that's offering the premium reduction. It's actually FSBP and Aetna together as we're sponsoring this plan. And we are offering this because it's an incentive for folks to enroll both in Part B as well as to enroll in the Medicare Advantage plan. And we do think this is a good plan. Whether it's better is sort of a personal decision depending on how you use healthcare and what works for you. And so the $900 is there because we believe that the Medicare Advantage plan, that the value proposition, if you will, but the Medicare Advantage plan, because it provides that proactive management through the clinical team, it provides these other programs, support programs and so forth, that they can actually provide better health outcomes rather than just having sort of Medicare A and B as your primary with us as backup. FSBP, as I said, has great clinical programs, but we don't always know what services you're getting because we're a secondary payer when you have Medicare. With the Medicare Advantage, they'll get that information right up front and can provide that support. And so there's belief that there's a lower cost involved. Medicare Advantage plans actually receive a work contract essentially with Medicare to take on the risk for people who are enrolled in Medicare Advantage plans. So it's a value proposition for everybody, but there is the belief that it can result in better outcomes for that clinical handling that is primary, that's not quite there with the Part A and Part B. And so I share that whether it's better I sort of went through the specifics before. It really depends on sort of your needs and how you use healthcare.
All right.
Eh,
We're no, you go
Yeah, go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead, please, please, please.
All right. We have multiple questions coming in. Um, so let's see. Are compound prescriptions covered? They're asking about thyroid medications in particular. This is from Melinda.
So compound, and I had this question in a webinar the other day. Compound prescriptions are an exclusion under the plan, and actually they're an exclusion under the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. I think it was back in 2016. Compound medications became a program-wide exclusion. If there is a specific contact the pharmacy benefit manager, but they are excluded. We saw a huge spike in compound medications in 2014, 2015, even into 2016. And we've seen a drop off in that since the exclusion went into place. So there may be certain exceptions, but that again, if it's us, contact the plan, contact the pharmacy benefit manager. But generally, there is an exclusion on compound medications.
All right. We've gotten quite a few questions about massage therapy. And I know, Kyle, you kind of wanted to address those.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm watching the chat. I'm seeing this. So I want to be clear. Under the Foreign Service Benefit Plan, massage therapy. So I'm talking about the high option plan that everybody has right now, not the Medicare Advantage plan. I'll come back to that in a minute. Under the Foreign Service Benefit Plan, massage therapy is covered. It's not subject to the calendar year deductible. It is, you get up to 50 visits per year. We will cover up to $60 per visit. I've seen people ask here and in other webinars, what about just a pool of money that we could use? Because it's hard to find massages that are $60. You might find it overseas more than you might find it in the US around that cost. This is the only plan in the FEHB that offers massage therapy coverage rather than just a discount plan or something like that in this way. And I understand we do actually look at the cost every year. And we are considering this, it's a line to walk. We do have people who are in a pain management program with chronic pain who are using 50 visits per year in some cases to relieve that chronic pain. We also have people who are only getting 20 a year and are saying, why not cover more? I'm not sure that we could actually get approval from OPM to cover more. And sort of, I would also encourage you to consider if that's a consideration for you. Look at those wellness dollars, those wellness incentive funds that you can earn. That can help cover the cost difference, as well as flexible spending accounts. That can also be sort of a pre-tax way to cover some of those costs. I also want to be clear that when you submit a claim for massage therapy, it must include certain pieces of information. So your name, your ID number, the provider's name, the provider's address, the provider's license or tax ID number. And that includes overseas if it's a country that licenses massage therapists. It must also be clear what services you received, the date on which you received the services, and the cost of the services. And I say that because sometimes massage is provided at a place where maybe they also provide nail services or facials or something like that. So we need all of that information. Under the Medicare Advantage plan, I'm going to read specifically from the language on the website. Massage therapy is covered. It's $0 that the member pays up to 50 visits per year when medically necessary. And there's a little asterisk that takes you to the bottom that says we've partnered with American Specialty Health Group, ASH Group, to provide you with therapeutic massage services. As an Aetna Medicare Advantage PPO member, if you enroll in the Medicare Advantage plan, you can visit providers in and out of the ASH network at the same cost share as long as they accept Medicare and your health plan. Therapeutic massage treatments must be medically necessary as determined by ASH Group and provided by a state licensed massage therapist. This plan, the Medicare Advantage plan, will not cover therapeutic massage for comfort or relaxation purposes. So I just want to clarify what I'm talking about there. And I hope we'll put that issue to bed for now because we've got some great questions coming in about other topics incumbent on open season.
All right.
And actually, I think we've got somebody, I'm watching some other chat going on that we've got somebody in the queue. If somebody wants who may want to ask a question live, if they want to, they can please give us a nod. I think this is Lee? And if not, then we'll keep moving on with questions for now that we're receiving through the chats. I'm just doing what that says for this part. So, Many, why don't we move on to one of the other questions that we have?
All right. Samuel has asked, is Medicare Part A renewal automatic?
Yeah. So if you are at Ambassador Thompson, thank you for joining us. It's been years since I've seen you back at DACOR, I think it was, and thank you very much for being with us. Medicare Part A, yes, you don't need to take any action if you're already enrolled in it. It's the enrollment is going to continue. You don't need to take any action on that to keep your Medicare Part A. Great question.
All right. Then we have a question. I'm trying to scroll back up to make sure we don't miss any. Will COVID tests still be covered in 2023?
That is a great question. And what I can tell you right now is that COVID tests continue to be covered. So the over-the-counter tests are covered per the terms released back in January very hastily by the Departments of Treasury and Health and Human Services, and I think it was Labor as well. So COVID tests, home tests are covered. And they are covered, 100% if you go to a network pharmacy, if you and present your card and buy them at the pharmacy counter, or you order them through the Express Scripts home pharmacy, up to 8 tests per rolling 30 days. And if you buy them from some other source, then we're covering up to $12 per test. Again, 8 per person per rolling 30 days. If you receive a COVID test in a clinical setting, so at your doctor's office, at the hospital, urgent care, minute clinic, convenient care settings, or even a lab, we are covering those at 100% still, and we are covering them even when they're required for purposes like travel. There's fewer and fewer countries requiring that, but if that is required, we are one of the few plans I think that is still covering that. You may have to, even if you go to an in-network provider, you may have to pay at the time of service because there are so few groups paying for something like travel requirements. You can send that claim to us. We will reimburse you for that cost when it's performed in a clinical environment. So we have no plans at this time to change the coverage for either home tests or tests performed in a clinical environment. We also don't have any requirements coming from OPM or other sources that would mandate that we change that. Were we to make a change, we will make an announcement, provide ample notification to them of any change, but right now we don't have any change. I think at this point we've spent well over 20 million on just COVID tests, way more than 50% of everything that we spent on COVID. So happy to spend the money on testing rather than on treatment anytime, and that goes for anything. So right now we do not have a plan to change that. And that may, I also want to be clear because I see here that Express Scripts sent an email suggesting that it may not be covered. We determine what our plan covers unless we receive a mandate from OPM. Other plans may change. Check with us. We'll keep the website updated.
All right. We have a question from Claudia. She has asked, will CVS Caremark offer the same kind of mail delivery as Express Scripts?
That is a great question, Claudia, and I want to direct you to the information that, and I am not trying to be cagey here. I have to be careful about what I answer on the Medicare Advantage plan, so I will direct you to the fspthealth.com/retiree page. There is a phone number that you can call there, and they can answer that information specific to the pharmacy. So I don't, again, I'm not trying to avoid it, but I want to make sure that the question is being answered by the right person and I'm not going outside of my line.
All right. We've gotten a couple of questions about mental health and kind of what I've covered under FSBP. When it comes to that, I believe we have a voicemail that we can pull up and play.
Hi, I'd like to know what, if any, mental health support opportunities are available under Foreign Service Benefit Plan. Thank you.
Such a good question, and I really appreciate that question. So I want to be clear that there was established by law mental health parity, which basically means that your cost share and access to mental health services must be the same as access to essentially physical health services. So you're not paying additional costs for mental health care. I should say there's not additional cost share, so it's still covered 90% for outpatient services. And when you go in network, I should say, for those outpatient services. So specific programs that we have include, and I'm going to just go through these in no particular order. There is a program called My Strength, and this is essentially an app that members can engage with on their own. There's not like a person on the other side who's providing coaching or counseling or anything. It is an app that walks you through programs based in things like cognitive behavioral therapy to help you manage things like stress, even substance abuse and so forth, stress, anxiety, etc. So that is available to all members starting at age 13. We also have a program called Able To, and this is only available right now to members in the United States, but it is an 8-week online program designed to help you when you're facing a major life transition or challenge. So maybe you've been diagnosed with a major condition, maybe you have a loved one who's been diagnosed with that, maybe it's loss of a loved one, maybe it's birth of a new child, which is we think of as a joyful event, and it is, but doesn't mean that it's not stressful or a big change in your life. And so Able To is there. There is a person there. You're working with a coach and a therapist in many cases, and that's there. We also provide benefits for telehealth, 100% coverage when you engage with a provider, including therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists through teledoc when you're in the United States. Or overseas, it's through a program called V-Health, which is actually a teledoc overseas, but it's a slightly different program, but that is available. We also provide benefits for telemedicine. So if you have a provider and you want to continue to engage with them through a virtual visit, over the phone, et cetera, and they're willing to do that, we pay for that as well. And that cost share is the same as you would pay for an in-person visit. We continue to try to expand our network with mental health providers. So many of them are individual practitioners. There are fewer and fewer of them graduating. There are fewer of them who are participating in networks and so forth. But we work every day to expand that network. So I encourage people to take a look at those opportunities to engage in those programs. It is a great question.
Yeah. We have another kind of follow-up question about mental health. Is there additional coverage for mental health therapy with Medicare Advantage plan?
So again, the Medicare Advantage plan would be subject to the what was it I said before? Mental health parity. I tell you what, we go just 12 minutes longer, and apparently I run out of steam. No, it would be subject to mental health parity. So the cost share for mental or behavioral health visits, to use one of the other terms out there, would be the same as it would be for the physical health. So I would encourage you to take fsbphealth.com/retiree. There's a provider search tool link. You can find out information. And if you want to find out about any specific support programs they have, you can call that phone number found on that page. I'll also note that they provide access to teledoc, and that's the telehealth service. So you would have access to providers through that service as well.
All right. I'm going to go back to some of the questions that were submitted to us prior to the show, just to make sure that we're covering all bases for people. Trying to make sure I haven't asked these before. Let's see. Okay. Looks like we have one from Heidi M. And she has said, how does joining Medicare Part B enhance benefits already available with FSBP/Aetna?
So, how joining Medicare Part B enhance the benefits already? Okay, good. Joining Part B, and I'm going to answer this as you join Part B and you keep the foreign service benefit plan, the high option plan, rather than going through into the Medicare Advantage plan. I will first of all say that if you enroll in Part B, you have the option of opting into the Medicare Advantage plan. But if you keep foreign service benefit plan and enroll in Part B, as I said before, you're essentially 100% covered for your medical and hospital costs. Foreign service remains primary for your prescription, so you'd still have some out-of-pocket costs there, but otherwise you've got that essentially 100% coverage. And if it's something that Medicare, I should have mentioned this before, if it's something Medicare doesn't cover, like massage therapy, we still cover it per the terms of the brochure. So you'd still have coverage for that. If Medicare, they do have limited coverage for something like chiropractic services. If you run through your Medicare covered chiropractic services, you still have our benefits up to the calendar year maximum for the 50 visits. So it works together. Your out-of-pocket costs go down, almost disappear, essentially. So especially for medical and hospital costs. And you do have to pay the premium for Medicare Part B, but you're greatly reducing your risk for medical out-of-pocket costs.
All right. We have a great question about eligibility coming up right here. PGYT1 has said, are civil service employees eligible to sign up for the FSBP? Currently, my CS wife and I are signed up under a family FSBP plan, but it looks like the premiums would be less for 2 individual plans.
Correct. Yes. So it's a weird thing within the FEHB program. So all the plans in the program, with very few exceptions, I can't think of one right now. Enrolling in 2 self-only plans is less expensive than the self and family, or even the self plus one for plans where the self plus one costs less than the self and family. Yeah, their civil service employees are eligible to sign up for FSBP in their own right, and especially in this case, your spouse has been covered by FSBP. And I say that typically, if it were just your spouse coming in, your spouse would have to be a civil service employee of an eligible agency, because we're not open to just everybody. But your spouse has had foreign service benefit plan under your coverage. Your spouse could enroll in her own right if she wanted to, for a 401 plan for her and a 401 plan for you. This is a good opportunity for to mention also that any changes that you make during open season to your health plan actually will be effective this year on January 1st, 2023. Sometimes it's a little bit later. It's always the first day of the first full pay period in the new year, and it happens to be January 1st in 2023. So any changes you make will be effective right on January 1st. So keep that in mind as you're considering changes. But that's a great question. Yes, civil service employees are eligible. They have to be employed by a qualifying agency, which is State Department, Department of Defense, DHS, intelligence community. There's the host of other agencies and even specific offices within certain agencies, even if the whole agency isn't eligible. So that, yes, short answer is yes.
All right. It looks like we have a couple more voicemails, so we're going to go ahead and play another one.
This is Tim from Minnesota. My question is about the dental and vision aspects of the foreign service benefit plan. What is covered as far as dental and vision, and do people typically have to buy supplemental dental and vision plans? Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, so the question on vision is an easy one in terms of what's covered under foreign service benefit plan. There is no routine vision coverage. There is coverage for accidental ocular injury. So if you hurt your eye through an accidental injury, there's coverage for that. There's also coverage for medical conditions affecting the eyes, things like macular degeneration, dry eye, cataracts, glaucoma, and as well as coverage for treatments for that and surgery for things like glaucoma and cataracts. There is also a benefit limited to one time vision exam and maybe one new set of glasses after you have corrective surgery for something like cataracts or glaucoma, and that's it. When it comes to dental, there's actually a whole section in the brochure, all 2 pages of dental benefits, section 5G, and there again, accidental injury is covered. There is coverage under Section 5B for maxillofacial surgery. This includes things like impacted wisdom teeth. So if they have to be surgically removed, that's a dental that is considered surgery and is covered. Things like surgery for TMJ. Some of these are subject to pre-certification, prior approval by the plan, but there is coverage for that. There is all of $36 for adult cleanings and exams twice a year. If you find a dentist who's just charging $36 for that, you might want to find a different dentist. I'm not sure It usually costs quite a bit more than that, but there is limited coverage. There's also $1,000 of coverage for orthodontia. Now that's once every 5 years, per course of treatment, etc. But otherwise, there's the very limited dental coverage. However, your FEHB plan remains primary for dental, so please keep that in mind. There's other limited services that are covered in a limited way because we have not changed. Been allowed to change the dental benefits since the mid 80s. So we're coming up on 40 years now that these have been frozen. So do people have to enroll in supplemental plans? No, they don't. It's sort of how you use dental and vision care. If you're just getting your teeth cleaned twice a year, have the occasional cavity, an annual vision exam, you might want it. You might not. It might not make sense to pay that much in premiums to get limited benefits. You might also want to look at discount plans. AFSPA very happily offers a dental, vision, and LASIK combined discount plan. We also offer dental plans. The FEDVIP, Federal Employee Dental and Vision Insurance Program, offers 23 plans and options for dental, 10 plans and options for vision, but they're a little inflexible. So there's fewer, in my opinion, I need to be clear about that. In my opinion, there are limited qualifying life events to change from one plan to another or to leave the program. AFSPA, we are proud to offer 4 dental plans, and they're a bit more flexible. So if you go from stateside to overseas and you want our true international plan, something unique that's not offered in the FedVIP program, come to us, and you can make those transitions. And our benefits in many cases compete with those in the FedVIP program. So it's really up to you. You may also want to look at putting some money in a flexible spending account to cover those costs.
All right. We have another question about Medicare Advantage. And it looks like it is coming from our voicemails again. So we'll go ahead and play that.
Sandy Dembski, Bethesda, Maryland. I'm a retiree. I have Medicare and the Foreign Service Benefit Plan as a supplement. I got your letter or your notice about the possibility of Aetna Medicare Advantage. My question is that I understand now, even though I have Medicare and I have this as a supplement and live in the States, if I go overseas and for a vacation or something and have a medical expense, that the Foreign Service Benefit Plan will cover that. Would this also be the case with the Aetna Medicare Advantage Plan? Thank you.
Good question, Ms. Densky, and I see others in some of the chats are asking the same question. The coverage under the Medicare Advantage Plan does provide you coverage for urgent and emergent care when you're outside the United States on travel. Again, it's not intended if you're residing outside the United States significant time and receiving significant care outside the United States. But if you have an accidental injury or a medical emergency, there is coverage under the Medicare Advantage Plan for that. So it's not intended to be as comprehensive as the Foreign Service Benefit Plan, but there is coverage for that. So that's a great question.
All right. Let's see. We had another question that was kind of related to the, I believe, civil service employees. It's from Melinda, and she's asked, if one spouse is not civil service but married to another civil service person, can we get separate policies, or would the spouse have to go with +1?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to make sure, Melinda, that we're understanding what you mean when you say SC. We've been trying to keep an eye on the questions that have come in. So if we're misunderstanding the question, please let us know. So to get two self-only policies, each spouse, in this case that we were discussing, must be eligible for FEHB coverage in their own right. So the question we had earlier was good, Melinda. We got it correct. That's okay. We just want to make sure we're answering the correct question. each spouse. So we had somebody asking before who's retired foreign service and has a spouse who is, as I understood, active civil service. They are each eligible for FEHB enrollment in their own right. So if you and your spouse are each federal employees, direct hire federal employees of the executive branch, and eligible for FEHB coverage in your own right, then you can separate it. But if your spouse is not a federal employee, for instance, not eligible for that, then you would want to look at either the self and family if we're talking about foreign service, or if you're looking at another plan, check the premiums for self plus one versus self and family, because there are about 90 plans in the program where the family is actually less than the self plus one.
All right. And I think to kind of, and we've been flip-flopping with Medicare Advantage and other questions, but someone has asked, what happens if you don't opt in for Medicare Part B when you were first eligible, but then decide you want it at a later time?
Okay, so you first become eligible for Medicare Part B on your 65th birthday. You have a 7-month period. You've got 3 months before your birth month, and 3 months after your birth month. That's your initial enrollment period. If you're already retired at that time and receiving your insurance, your FEHB insurance through your retirement, that is your opportunity to enroll. If you don't enroll in that time, you can face a penalty of 10% of the premium, a 10% additional premium for every 12 months that you do not enroll in Part B. So if you come back 2 years later when you're 67, decide you want Part B, you would be paying a 20% penalty on top of your premium monthly. If you are still actively employed at the age of 65 and receiving your insurance through active employment, you can delay that decision about Part B until you retire. So using similar scenario, 65, you're still working, getting your insurance through active retirement, you retire on your 67th birthday. At that time, you have an 8-month, what's known as a special enrollment period, during which you can make your decision about Part B without a penalty. There are some forms you have to submit, so you want to make sure you get those filled out by your HR or retirement office to submit to Medicare so you avoid that penalty, but that starts that 8-month special enrollment period. So yes, you want to be careful about your timing so you don't face that penalty, because that penalty continues for the rest of your life, the rest of the time that you're enrolled in Part B. It's not just a one-time penalty. Great question.
All right. It looks like we're appearing the top or heading towards 12 p.m. for us. We just want to remind everyone that we do AFSPA Live every last Thursday of every month. We will be here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we hope to see you guys all again next time. Kyle, if you want to go ahead and head us out.
Yeah, no, this has been great. We obviously should do open season every month to get this kind of engagement, or to do Medicare or something like that. And we so appreciate the engagement, appreciate the questions. This is, if we didn't get to your question, or if you come up with another question later, this is not your only opportunity. We still have somewhere around 10 webinars during open season. You can go to AFSPA.org/open season to find all the open season information you want about Foreign Service Benefit Plan and other options from AFSPA. You can also find there the schedule for those webinars and an ability to register for them. I plan to be there for all of them. There's one at 1 p.m. So if this hasn't been enough for you today, join us in about an hour. We also are offering some if you're overseas, or if you got folks overseas who you're talking to, 5 a.m.s, 10 p.m.s, 12, 3, lots of opportunities to engage. And I'll be there to answer questions live. So please join us, or tell your friends, tell family members if they want to join also. I also encourage you, if you're interested in the Medicare Advantage plan, tune into those webinars, go to that website. The next webinar for that is November 30th. Once again, thank you all so much. I also want to point you to our podcast, AFSPA Talk. So you can find that on your favorite podcast app. Subscribe. If you haven't had enough of me, you've got me there hosting. We did an overview of open season. The first thing this month, we had an episode just posted today specifically about the Medicare Advantage. It's brief, talking about the differences between Foreign Service Benefit Plan and the Medicare Advantage plan. So go to that. You can also find a link to that on our website at afspa.org/podcast. It plays right there on the website if podcasts aren't your thing on your mobile device. Please come to that. We'll be doing episodes in the future. I'm working on a guest to talk about artificial reproductive technology. coverage. They've been a little elusive, but we're going to get at least some information out there about that. So please also go back to the February episodes in AFSPA Talks, because it was a whole month dedicated to Medicare. Medicare and the FEHB, Medicare Advantage plans, and for those of you veterans out there, Medicare, the FEHB, and TRICARE for life. So we've got some fantastic episodes out there. And check out our website. You can find resources there about the various programs we offer and more information. You can always contact us with any questions that you have. So join us again next month. Let us know what you'd like to hear from us. Also, that is so helpful to us. But otherwise, thanks for joining us, Maddie. Thank you. Thanks to our team in the background. They've been keeping things coming. Thanks to everybody who called in with a voicemail, who provided a question. If we didn't get to it today, please back to us at any time. We'd be happy to answer that.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And as seen on the screen, you can watch the recording of this live Q&A session right after this ends. And so if you missed anything, you will find it there. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for watching our broadcast. Join us again the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget to look for AFSPA Cares on all of our social media channels: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.